On a night close to Halloween, I came across a film that I had seen and wanted to like when I saw it in theaters. Being a huge fan of films such as Cannibal Holocaust, I remember not being able to wait to see the latest film by Eli Roth, The Green Inferno, but was left disappointed. I'd left the theater shaking my head, full of unanswered questions I wouldn't contemplate until years later. If you have not seen the film, it is extremely graphic and hard to sit through at times. The director's cut sits even worse. However, if you decide to watch it, I recommend stomaching it and watching the latter. If you haven't seen the film, sucks for you, because here comes a bunch of spoilers. The main question I had was why Justine, the main character, had lied and kept her mouth shut in the end. After watching it in theaters, my initial interpretation was that Justine was back in a world filtered by the media and feared no one would believe her if she said the indigenous tribe was a bunch of monster savages rather than primordial innocents. However, it didn't sit right thinking that was it, and I felt there was more to uncover. I wanted to find a thorough explanation from the director himself, Mr. Eli Roth. Instead, I found forum after forum of the most idiotic interpretations of this ingenious film that is seriously misunderstood. It just so happened that the main thing discussed and questioned seemed to be the same question that had initially baffled me. Why did Justine lie in the end? After the second viewing, but first of the uncut version, not only did I find my answer, but I discovered a different film entirely. Here's my 2 cents on the ending. While most of the victims are eaten alive, Justine is spared so that the tribe can perform female genital mutilation on her, while another victim is subjected to the ordeal of the ants. You may be asking why I put quotations around victims. Because they are not the victims of the film, because they are. The tribe, which just so happens to practice cannibalism, is seen as the evildoers by a blind audience. Cannibalism, female genital mutilation, and trials and rituals involving insects are, in some cultures, coming-of-age ceremonies. But this is hard to consider and seen as offensive to the sensitivities of Westerners, which are usually put on for show. Why would the tribe bestow initiation on some prisoners and eat others? Maybe a reason I had missed, but not everything should be explained, particularly when it comes to the motivations and cultural rituals of a lost tribe. At times, the film seems like an apology for colonialism. I say this because before leaving for Peru, Justine tells her father, who is a lawyer for the United Nations, that she wants to stop female genital mutilation. He answers, "There are laws, there is a process. You can't just go invade a country because they're doing something you think is illegal or immoral. At least not anymore." That right there says everything. I delved a little deeper and found this interview from somewhere where director Eli Roth explains, "The whole idea of the kids saving the rainforest, only to be eaten by the tribe they saved, is a metaphor for how people are shamelessly consumed by their vanity and need for validation on social media. As monstrous as these cannibals are, the real monsters are the film's social justice warriors. Social justice warriors value their personal and online fantasies over any actual change. Luckily, these cannibals live a reality that demolishes the power structures of social media. But you don't need me nor Roth to spell it out for you. One of the main characters does that for us. Alejandro, the charismatic leader of the activists, asks his friends if they have ever had a fantasy of saving an undiscovered Amazonian tribe. He explains that shaming people on the internet is the only way to affect change. Activists love to take selfies and celebrate when their activities go viral on Twitter. They regard their phone cameras as magical amulets that protect them from authority and danger. However, in the film, Western advances in optic technology are rendered useless against violated cannibals. The best scene portraying this is also probably the most gruesome in the film. A tribal elder plucks out an activist's eyes and eats them, letting him know that the logic of online shaming means jack shit in his cannibalistic world, in which they have become enslaved. By the end of the film, Alejandro is revealed to be a sociopath who doesn't care about the survival of the indigenous people or his companions. While in captivity, he explains that his protest to save the rainforest from a petroleum company was actually funded by a rival corporation, and that the indigenous people never had any hope of survival. He claims the protest will get their activist group lots of publicity online, which can be parlayed into political power. Yay for social justice. He explains that this is the way the world works. Do you think the US didn't allow 9/11 to happen? Or that there is such thing as the drug war? In the uncut version, to emphasize the point, Alejandro passes the time in his cage by masturbating, but then is strangled by a fellow prisoner who was enraged by his lack of compassion, or maybe wanted to help him finish by aiding him in autoerotic asphyxiation. I don't know, because we never find out if Alejandro climaxed from the surprising assistance. Yeah, you're welcome. From many sites I've looked over, the ending is perceived differently by each viewer. But what the majority tends to forget is everything before the extreme gore and graphic cannibalism, the only things that seem to be remembered. Justine is the innocent virgin, and according to the classic formula of horror movies, is the only one who survives. And innocence needs to be corrupted. This is also a shout out to the Marquis de Sade, author of 120 Days of Sodom and Justine, to which this film tilts its hat. Back in the United States, we see her telling a group of authorities that the tribe helped her after a plane crash killed all of her companions. But she denies rumors that the tribe is cannibalistic. Her motivation for doing this is never mentioned. Roth asks, does she want credit or does she want to save them? In the final scene, she chooses to protect the village. The film closes with a group of college protesters wearing t-shirts stenciled with Alejandro's face in the style of Che Guevara icons. The monster has become a leftist hero. Where have I seen this before? It seems awfully familiar, right? The word monster comes from the Latin monere, meaning to warn. The warning that Eli Roth wants us to see is that we live in a perfect example of simulacrum. From Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation, in which our heroes are really sociopaths, and our aspirations for justice are disguised narcissism. It isn't that Roth doesn't care, it's that he is profoundly pessimistic about our ability to change things. To the critics who didn't understand, Roth stated, "This fear that somehow a movie would give petroleum companies ammunition to destroy a tribe all sounds like misdirected anger and frustration that the corporations are the ones controlling the fates of these uncontacted tribes." Roth's declared goal was to shock audiences out of a fantasy in which heroism can be experienced from a computer screen. The obsessive use of torture and gore is meant to create the sense of an encounter with the real world that is visceral and dangerous, and he does a brilliant job of this. Too bad, it was just a few years before its time. For more, visit Alleviate. Link and don't follow or subscribe. You are a leader, and are not below anyone. Do not ring the bell. You are not some Pavlovian bitch who salivates after hearing a bell.